It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. You know, I'm a huge supporter of manufacturing, huge supporter of domestic production for domestic consumption. Want to make it here, want to build it here. We consume it here, want the jobs here. The one thing that I'm absolutely 110% opposed to is abusing child labor. And this is the part where my Republican friends just don't seem to get it. There's an opportunity. As we're reshoring manufacturing, there's an opportunity to put everybody to work. There's an opportunity to bring people here to this country who want to seek a better life and get them to work. We can do that, and we don't have to go into the schools and pluck children out of the classrooms to fill our cheap labor needs. Don't have to do it. There's a better way, but, well, sadly, our Republican friends in states all across the country are rolling back child labor laws because we need the cheap labor. We need the cheap labor. Sorry, you know, we're addicted to it. Gotta have it. So when I see stories like this one coming out of Mississippi, I get mad, I get angry, I get frustrated because we can do better. We should do better. We have to do better. 16-year-old Guatemalan child. The article that I'm reading says worker. No, this is a 16-year-old child. But they put it as the 16-year-old Mississippi poultry plant worker. No, it's a child, 16-year-old kid working in a poultry plant. Died on the job back in July. In a place where have had a history of lots of injuries, lots of accidents, lots of things happening to working people. In fact, over the last several years, there have been numerous fines. This is a place. What was it? In the past 5 decades, they've inspected the 5 plants that are in this Marjack's little conglomerate 23 times in the past decade. 23 times in the last 10 years. 3 inspections following a worker's death. Cited 10 times. $102,000, almost $103,000 in fines. But this one, a kid dies. And what's a 16-year-old Guatemalan child's life worth? Well, $212,666. That's what the fine was. That's what it was. So, yeah, $212,000. I got to tell you, it's more than that's been in the past. OSHA cited Marjack with 14 serious violations and 3 others that were less than serious. One of the big ones being that they had no lockout tagout procedures, that they failed to ensure that there were barriers in place so when the workers went into the machinery, they didn't just start, so that they didn't get killed on the job. This kind of a thing. They're also going after the staffing agency, and this is another part of this. Because you've got the company, this Marjack's, this 16-year-old child didn't actually work for them, worked for a staffing agency who worked for them. So there's this, we didn't know the child was only 16. That's on them. And that's the reason that we have such screwed up laws in this country to benefit corporate America, and why we need a complete revamping of our labor laws from top to bottom. From child to senior. But here you got this kid working at the poultry plant, and now a fine for the company. Nobody going to jail. Trust me, nobody's sweating that out. But you have the Department of Labor, and this is why I'm such a big supporter of Joe Biden. His labor department, their wage and hour division, they're the folks who enforce child labor laws, in case you don't know. They have had a task force that's been looking at. The reason we've been hearing a lot about child labor violations is because of this task force that's been out there going, hey, it seems like a lot of kids are working, especially in the poultry industry. You may remember, what was it? It was over the summer. You had that Packers Sanitation Solutions Incorporated somewhere like Wisconsin, Midwest. They were fined, what was it? I think $1.5 million for illegally hiring more than 100 children to work in their plants. And it's been said that the meatpacking industry in this country would collapse without child labor. Think about that for a second. The meat, the food you put on your table, the children's hands that go into this. It's angering to think that this is the system that we've allowed to get set up around us. Now, this task force is, and look, every day I see something. They are out there going full you-know-what to the wall. Because we have to stop this. Now, understand, you've got Biden and the task force saying, hey, we got to crack down on this stuff, while simultaneously you've got Republicans, like in Indiana, for instance. No, go ahead at 14 and quit school and go work in that industrial farm. No, by all means, go to work in Florida. Don't worry. Go work in construction at 14, 15, 16. Don't worry about an education. And you look at these red states, because again, it's got to get those kids a little skin in the game. This is not who we are. Now, again, and let me add the caveat. I'm not talking about your children or mine. When we're talking about the children that are working in these jobs, especially in these poultry plants and on these construction jobs, these are minority children. These are poor children. These are immigrant children. But they're children much the same. And I would love to see some people get, I don't know, a little worked up about the fact that we're abusing children and exploiting children in the workforce for profit, for the handful to get richer, for shareholders to pocket more. Just kind of throwing it out there. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1909. That was the day the United States Supreme Court decided the case Moyers versus Peabody. The case grew out of the Colorado Labor Wars, a series of back-to-back strikes in 1903 and 1904 in the precious metals mines and ore mills. The Colorado National Guard meted out violent assaults, arrests, and deportations against strikers, often on orders from Colorado Governor James Peabody. The state militia routinely rounded up strikers and union leaders, detained them for weeks in bullpens, and ignored their habeas corpus petitions. Western Federation of Miners President Charles Moyer arrived in Telluride during a strike to find these repressive conditions. He signed a poster that read, "Is Colorado in America?" The poster included an image listing the many violations of basic democratic rights on the American flag. Moyer was arrested in March of 1904 for desecration of the American flag on the poster. He was detained on the grounds of military necessity, even after the courts ordered his release. His case traveled through the state and federal courts until the Supreme Court ruled. They held that the governor and officers of a state National Guard, acting in good faith and under authority of law, may imprison without probable cause a citizen of the United States in times of insurrection and deny that citizen the right of habeas corpus. The ruling radicalized the labor movement. Many concluded there could be no justice through the court system. A later case successfully challenged the ruling on the basis that the claims of insurrection were subject to judicial review. The ruling, however controversial, still stands today and was invoked after 9/11 in the 2004 ruling Hamdi versus Rumsfeld. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter @laborhistoryin2. So recently I had this very interesting, bizarre conversation with a listener who has an interesting view that whoever they are, and I'm sure got this from Donald Trump, but they are going to turn our entire military electric. We're going to have electric tanks, evidently, and the electric tanks are going to get like a mile and a half per charge, and we're going to have vehicles that charge the electric tanks, and it's going to be this whole electric tank charging thing, and we're gonna lose wars because of the Green New Deal that Joe Biden signed. A whole bunch of this fantasy stuff, and I know where this comes from. A little over a year ago, Donald Trump, just spewed this out at one of the rallies. And if you watch the rallies, there's a lot of made up stuff on the moment that nobody really fact checks much anymore. This is one of the things that got fact checked, and it's total BS. But it's amazing how people then, if Donald Trump said it, it's got to be true. It's like the internet. If it's there, it's got to be true. And here to share some thoughts on, are we going to have an EV military? Will we have an electric military? And, will we have all Chinese-made EVs? Because evidently, if you remember a couple months ago, Donald Trump said that the auto workers were being sold down the river by their leadership, and their leadership should endorse him because EVs are going to be made in China, and a whole bunch of craziness. And that's why I've asked our good friend Scott Paul to come help me work through this pile of insanity. Scott, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, good to be with you.
You're the guy. You're the manufacturing guy, head of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. You're the guy who has your thumb on the pulse. You're the guy who it's your job to keep up on the latest, the greatest, the news of the day. Are we going to have electric tanks? Is this the future of our military? That we're going to have green tanks? Is that going to happen?
Yeah, Rick, all I have to say is the United States has always been a great innovator when it comes to making sure we have a modern, superior military, including the vehicles. So while we may have some research going on that looks at how you can incorporate things like batteries with a lot of storage life or what have you, that doesn't equate to making all of our tanks run on batteries within the next 5 or 10 years. Okay. So, and in fact, it would be kind of criminal if the Department of Defense and the research agencies weren't looking at how you employ kind of like new forms of energy into your weapon systems and into your battle planning. Down the road. But that's neither here nor there, because what happens is someone takes a nugget from something and then turns it into something else, and all of a sudden you have this big blown up conspiracy. But no, our tanks are going to run what they're going to run, what they're running on now for the foreseeable future, unless and until there is a better way to get them from point A to point B.
Yeah, but I know where this came from. This comes from one of Donald Trump's speeches, at one of those rallies where he just stands there for hours and just makes stuff up. And our mainstream media, they just kind of let it roll off. Where like recently he said, well, we're going to be when we win, we're going to be in the White House for 4 years and beyond. And that didn't really catch anyone's attention other than to go, well, no, and beyond means we break the 2-term thing. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But we just kind of let a lot slide with the Red Hat Brigade, and that's what's frightening to me.
Well, it is in part because everybody else is held to a different standard. One and done for everybody else. But when there is such a wave of misinformation or disinformation or inaccuracies coming at you not only every day, but every hour, you get selective about it. You say, well, this is not as bad as that. And you play that game, and that's the wrong approach.
Right.
You can't let the Pinocchio test get broken.
So with that in mind,
yes.
With that in mind, because I got to go back to, again, this idea that Trump has put out that, all the EVs are going to be made in China, and almost no point in doing it because the auto workers are not going to have any jobs. All the EVs are going to be made in China. Is that accurate? And is that a mandated future? Is that written in stone somewhere that our auto workers can't make electric vehicles?
It is not, but I tell you what, we will have a Chinese future in this if there is no industrial policy in the United States. And I'll tell you why. I mean, right now, and up until very recently, the largest electric vehicle company in the world was Tesla, which was homegrown and, in fact, funded by Department of Energy research grants at the very beginning, notwithstanding Elon Musk's perceived brilliance in all of this. It was actually DOE grants and loans that helped Tesla really, really get a foothold and become the largest EV company in the world. However, China has invested steadily and heavily in this over the last decade or more, and has a couple of homegrown companies of its own and has a lot of capacity. Now, the issue is this. People are buying electric vehicles. It is exponentially more than it was 5 years ago, and 5 years ago was exponentially more than it was the 5 years before that. And this is going to continue to grow, whether people want it to or not. It's something that's just it's going to happen.
Yep.
The only question here is, where are these vehicles going to be made? Okay, that is the only question, not whether they're going to be made, but where are they going to be? And if we have tariffs, as Biden has kept in place on Chinese electric vehicles, 27.5%, if we have an industrial policy that helps to get this industry turbocharged in the United States so that it's more than Tesla, so that it is, GM and Ford and all the other entrants, Rivian, and all the other makers who want to come make their vehicles here. We're creating the ecosystem or the charging infrastructure for that. That's what gets us in the game, because if we don't, this is what's going to happen. And this is unfortunately what Trump doesn't say. It's not like all the internal combustion engine factories in the United States are going to stay. No. They will go, and they will go as these super cheap Chinese vehicles come into the United States and overtake the market. And I'm just going to say, not on my watch.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. And so that's why we need the right combination of policies. And while Trump does, I think, get the tariff aspect of this, he doesn't get the other stuff, and he's completely wrong about it and the type of impact it would have on our economy.
I mean, he's right in the fact that the auto workers won't have jobs if we do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And for me, the idea of moving to electric vehicles, I'm all in favor of it. I know people who have them. They're fabulous. In fact, I've driven in one once, and much quicker, much faster. I'd like one.
Yeah.
To be quite frank. But
yeah.
it is the future, as you've said, and I want it to be built here.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's hard to say. And I've said before, domestic production for domestic consumption. This should be our policy.
Yeah.
And
look, yeah, I just want to say, it's not like the government is going to come take away people's internal combustion engines or whatever the hell.
No, it's like anything. It's gonna eventually go away.
Yeah. Yeah, but it will, as folks discover the performance, as they get the batteries better, as they get the charging infrastructure built out, it's going to be great. Because look, I drive. You said we have a Chevy Volt, which is a hybrid, but we use it mostly for commuting, and I put about 3 gallons of gas in it the whole year, and that is a great feeling. I will say, when you're not doing it, it is awesome, and so people will discover that, and they'll discover it, by the way, not through Chevy Volts or Teslas, but through Ford F-150 pickup trucks and the SUVs and the other stuff that Americans love to buy. And those prices will be coming down, and again, the infrastructure will be in place. But here's the issue: if we stop all of that, it's not like it's going to go away, and it will be Chinese,
there you
guaranteed.
Go.
And it will be directly from China, or it will be Chinese companies that are setting up factories in Mexico to take advantage of the U.S.-Mexico free trade agreement, and they'll be coming to the United States through the back door that way. I don't want that to happen. I think that's an existential threat to the manufacturing ecosystem.
I absolutely agree with you. And talking about manufacturing, I got to tell you, I'm a big Joe Biden fan. I think he is doing something that no president in my lifetime has done, and that's turning the tide of losing manufacturing jobs and losing our ability to have manufacturing as a key component of our GDP. In fact, it's been a long downward trend of manufacturing's share of GDP. Some of the analysis that I've looked at going back into the early 2000s, we've been losing share. I think it was back then, it was manufacturing accounted for like 13% of GDP. By 2020, it was down to almost a little over 10%. Biden's turning that around through massive investments. I mean, I was looking at some numbers. In October of 23, we saw almost $19 billion going into the construction of manufacturing plants in this country. And that's up 73% from the October of 2022, up 136% from 21, up 166% from 19. And you just look at the month over month increases that are just staggering. And it comes back to it's the policies of this administration that are finally having an industrial policy and investing in this stuff that's bringing and reshoring this manufacturing back to our shores.
That's right. And let's just stipulate that this is not accidental and it's not cyclical. It is directly the result of policy. And that policy is to make sure that we're investing in the industries of today and of tomorrow. And it's having an impact. As you indicate, we've stabilized under this administration. This is the first time kind of post-World War II that we've actually added more manufacturing jobs back than we lost during a recession that occurred during the pandemic. So that's number one. Number two, to your point on construction, we've seen a construction boom in manufacturing facilities unlike anything we've seen in our lifetimes, either of our lifetimes. And and Rick, let me just say this: like, you're in Pennsylvania. I was raised in the Midwest. If you would have asked someone, anytime over the last 20 years, whether you thought that there'd be a massive factory built in the United States that employed 2,500 new people somewhere, everybody would be like, that's not happening. They're all closing down. And so, but that's exactly what's happening, not in one location in the United States, but in dozens. And it's in semiconductors, in batteries, in solar panels, in lots of other industries as well. And it's directly the result of this policy of we're having tariffs on the outside that are helping to level the playing field, and investment on the inside that's helping to build that workforce back up, that's helped to offset the cost of capital that it takes to get those enterprises up and running and to create a market for all of it through consumer incentives. And it's having a profoundly positive impact on manufacturing in this country.
How come we aren't hearing about this? I say this to people and they're like, oh, no, there's none of this happening. You're just making this up. And I'm going, no, the data is there.
Yeah.
The numbers are there. It's all there. You can see these places being built.
Yeah.
I keep saying the administration needs to build a website like Josh Shapiro did here in Pennsylvania when the bridge went out, of these buildings being built, maybe with a big Joe Biden image of, him pointing, going, I did that. You could click on little images of factories being built. I don't know, some kind of cute little gimmicky thing to draw people to be able to see this stuff actually happening in real time, because I don't think the message is getting out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, like, there's a website, it's invest.gov. You can go there and there's a map and you can see where a bunch of this stuff is happening. And it's just the primary stuff. It's not even the secondary stuff. And it would be awesome if you could click on those little dots and get not only the information, but like a live webcam of the construction taking place or whatever. So those free idea for the Biden administration right there from the Rick Smith Show and
there
Scott
you go.
Paul.
Not new. I've been saying this for a very long time. You need to get the PR out there, because or big giant 20-foot cutouts of Biden going, I did that. Because look, got an election coming out. Need some attention to this, because look, and this is the point. The point is in November of 2024, if Biden isn't reelected, and this is where my view on this is, you don't have to share it, all this stuff can go away. All of the policies, all of these investments, all of this stuff that we've chosen, this direction that we've chosen, can all go away.
Yeah. Look, we don't have to, regardless of who you support as a candidate, if you look at the policies and the Republicans wanting to defund the clean energy, the EV, some of the other stuff, and to just basically level off infrastructure, you will see all of that decline. There is no question about it, because it is very policy driven. And to your point about no one knowing, I mean, we polled through Morning Consult voters over the summer. Have you heard of a new factory being built in your community? And only about 30% of people said yes, even though there's more than that. Have you heard of one being built anywhere in America, a new one? And 36% said yes. So there's a lot of people who need to know about this and to understand that it's happening. And I just know from my road trip that I took over the summer, I saw, the Ford factory being built just off the interstate outside of Memphis. Down in Texas, I saw a semiconductor factory being built just off the interstate there. Outside of Phoenix, I saw another semiconductor factory being built just out of there. And it was just on and on and on like that, all across the United States. And so it is but yeah, it's one of those repetition things, Rick, where unfortunately, whether it's the White House or whomever, you're like, oh, we had a great press conference on this, let's wrap it up and move on to the next thing. No, got to hammer this stuff every day.
Yep. And
remind people what you're doing for them. And the good news, Rick, is there's no shortage of sites for the president to go to in Pennsylvania or Ohio or Michigan or Wisconsin, where there is, or North Carolina or Georgia, where there is some of this new construction taking place. There is a great story for them to tell. If they choose to focus on.
Yeah, from now to election day, every day at a new place that's being built, that jobs are being created and lives are being made better. I don't know what better you can do as a re-election campaign. But Scott, as always, appreciate the information, appreciate the expertise. Thanks so much.
Rick, great to be with you as always.
Our good friend Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, AmericanManufacturing.org, the website. Want to hear your thoughts. Have you heard of, do you know of, have you seen a new facility being built? Are you working at one? I want to hear it. Email me, Rick at thericksmithshow.com. If you're watching on our Free Speech TV, by all means, come back tomorrow for our radio affiliates. We're going to take a quick break. Back after this. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. Have you ever worn a union button or T-shirt to work? On this day in labor history, the year was 1912. Members of the Australian Tramways Association in Brisbane, Queensland, decided to put on their union badges at work. The men operated and maintained the city's public transport system. For months before the action, their manager, an American named Joseph Stillman Badger, had banned wearing the badges. He wanted to thwart the union from growing in numbers. Before noon that day, the workers gathered together and donned their union badges by affixing them to their watch chains. And for that, they were promptly suspended from their jobs. They were told they could return to work if they took off the badges. The workers refused. That night, 10,000 people gathered in the city's market square in a rally to support the workers. The next day, 25,000 workers walked off the job and marched through the streets. A general strike was called for January 30th. 43 unions supported the strike. The police violently attempted to disband the strikers on February 2nd, a day known in Australia as Black Friday. Perhaps the most remembered event in the strike occurred when the famous feminist Emma Miller stuck her hat pin into the rump of the police chief's horse. The horse reared and sent him tumbling to the ground. The strike wore on for 5 weeks before it faded. At the end of February, the tramway employees were officially granted the right to wear their badges. but the company refused to hire back striking workers. The events at Brisbane were an important stand for free speech and the right to form a union. A question for today is, how far would you be willing to go to show your union pride? Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
In cities all across America, an infiltration of wealthy investors, developers, and bankers is driving poor and middle-class families out of their own towns. What's at work here is the relentless financial shove of high-dollar gentrification. House by house, block by block, moneyed interests suddenly and often secretly buy up properties, bulldozing modest family homes to erect sprawling edifices for the rich. It's a profiteering money grab that intentionally prices out regular home buyers. Worse, it also artificially skyrockets property taxes for the area's longtime homeowners, forcing them to sell out and leave town. This financial whirligig is enormously destructive to a community's crucial sense of fairness and, well, community. For example, look at who likely does not live in your city. School teachers, firefighters, police, nurses, utility crews, and others who are essential to making any city work. If the so-called free market can't or won't provide affordable spaces so these families can come home where they belong, then the community itself must step up to meet the need with creative public initiatives. The good news is that many cities are doing just that, including where I live. Fed up with losing teachers who endure spirit-sucking hour-long commutes from distant suburbs, Austin's school board recently created its own affordable housing arm. It's starting to build hundreds of rental homes affordable to teachers, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, and other school employees. In addition, the district has formed a public facility corporation that partners with local groups like Habitat for Humanity to build and sell family homes at prices within the reach of the city's school employees. This is Jim Hightower saying, housing is not only a basic human need, but a community essential that can't be left to the whims and greed of developers.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So interesting, for at least a day, there was lots of news around Kentucky, and look, I gotta be honest. When I saw this story, it kind of stumped me a little bit because I thought marrying first cousins was not illegal. I thought it was like a Kentucky pastime. I thought it was normal. I didn't know it was illegal. Did you know it was illegal in Kentucky? I did not. So when a Republican introduced a bill that would have legalized marrying first cousins, I'm like, one, didn't know. Two, kind of surprised. But should I be? Anyway, here to share some thoughts on maybe this is the new way. Maybe Republicans are finally coming out and saying who they are. And that's why I've asked our good friend Sarah Burris to come share some thoughts. Sarah's a reporter over at Raw Story, rawstory.com, the website, if you want to check out the work that she does. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
Rick, how the heck are you?
I'm good. So are you with me on this? I got to tell you, I always thought it was perfectly legal in Kentucky. In fact, most of the stories, most of the jokes, most of the stereotypes or is this just being I don't know how to say it. It's not racist. Kentuckyist. Could this just me being Kentuckyist?
Well, I mean, I grew up thinking about that in terms of Arkansas, and I don't know if it's just based on where you're from.
Ohio, so Kentucky, right there on the border.
Right,
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. So this guy, he actually he won Survivor. I guess he's a reality star. And
yeah, because those are the people we want in the halls of power. Right. Sure.
Clearly it worked out so well for the presidency. So this guy was on Survivor. He ran for office unopposed, I will add, when another Republican retired in 23. So he's been in office for a little bit, but this is really his first, full, big, huge session. And his flagship bill is he was going to legalize incest with your cousin, your first cousin. And obviously, like, this is the first thing that I saw in the morning whenever I got up and saw the news, and it exploded quickly over the internet.
It was everywhere.
And right. And very quickly the dude comes out and he's like, "Oh, I just wrote this wrong. That's not what I meant at all." And
how did you write it so that it came out wrong? And why did those words come out of your pen?
And this is my question too. So his intention was to have a law where it expanded incest to not just be about sex, but include touching, groping, other forms of non-consensual contact. What is strange to me is he said in the drafting process, he had taken out first cousins, and then he forgot to add it back in. And my question is then, wait, why? Why then? Like, if you're adding, okay, so
should we be hunting down his first cousins?
My first question is, I started looking through his Facebook and be like, what's his wife look like? Do they look similar? Right? Like that. And that was a lot of the mockery online too, was just be like, well, this guy clearly tried to get with his cousin and couldn't make it happen. But really the question I have is, you said that you were drafting this, you drafted it by mistake. How did you screw this up so much that it really meant something completely different? Like, this is not a typo. This is not a missing comma. This is something very big that you then tried to present to the Kentucky House.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where you just make the argument, well, autofill must have un-autofilled it. I must have hit the alt-delete or something. It was supposed to be there.
Or just blame it on AI. Be like, oh, I wrote this bill via ChatGPT because I'm an idiot. And, there we go.
No, it sounds to me, I got to be honest, it sounds to me like, oops, someone found out. Now I got to find justification. Now I've got to find out. Now I got to save face because someone actually was reading this stuff and I was assured nobody would. And oops, now I'm in trouble. That's what this sounds like.
And I think that has been a comment from a lot of folks. I don't know the facts around it at all. I don't know anything about this personal life or where this idea came from. I know that a big thing in Kentucky is that when they outlawed abortion in that state, they did not allow carve-outs for rape or incest. So if somebody does commit involuntary incest and, rapes a 13-year-old first cousin, and she gets pregnant, she can't have an abortion in Kentucky. And so I wondered initially, is bringing this up about abortion? And I don't know.
Yeah.
It just seems convenient that this would be the first issue, and maybe it really is just a very personal issue to him.
Maybe it is. But I got to tell you, and I know it sounds terrible, and maybe it's just my bias, but I got to tell you, I thought it was legal in Kentucky and places like West Virginia. Maybe it's just too many of the stereotypes that I grew up on, and maybe this is a learning moment for me, and say maybe Kentucky isn't as well. I'll leave it there. Let me stop digging the hole right now. Let's move along. Let's move along. Evidently, Nikki Haley believes the Republican Party has never. Let me put this in an emphasis on the word never. The Republican Party has never been racist, but yet she has suffered racism.
I know, this is somebody whose campaign literally began where she talked about experiencing that kind of racism as she was growing up and what her parents experienced. This is also somebody who, her daughter just married a black man, and which would be impossible in pre-Loving v. Virginia, era of, there's no such thing as racism. So hell, even Nikki Haley's parents probably couldn't have gotten married, right? So there's a very strange problem that I think Nikki Haley has, where she seems to not know how to answer very simple questions about this issue, and panders to the far right racist wing of the Republicans, expecting that somehow she's going to be able to persuade them enough to get their vote. And it's like, dude, those people are never going to vote for you, ever, not ever. And so why are you courting their vote? Like, why not just stand up for what you believe in and say, look, we've had horrible moments of racism in the history of the United States, and we still have some issues now that we should be addressing, particularly with my opponent, Ron DeSantis, down in Florida, right? I mean, that's a very easy pathway to getting out of that question and then pivoting to attack Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
And I don't even run for president. So there you go. You're welcome, Nikki Haley.
Yeah, but it just shows just how bad both she and Ron DeSantis are at this campaigning thing, especially when you're talking about the national stage. It takes a lot to be able to run at this level. And look, I was watching DeSantis in Iowa on a couple of the stops that they were televising, and he is just all around all bad. There's nothing redeeming in his campaigning whatsoever, and she's, as you've said, pandering all over the map, making words up, because she's trying to please everybody to just try and stay around long enough for Trump to fall over. And I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't either. I understand what she's doing. It's a very politician thing to do. I just don't think that the Republican Party operates that way anymore. And I don't think that she has really any option here to try and make nice with people that are going to hate her come hell or high water. Ron DeSantis, I read it like a while ago, but one of my favorite comments from, I think it was a member of Congress who said, Ron DeSantis has no chance if he runs again in 2028 because he'd have to have a personality transplant. And it's like, that is the perfect characterization of Ron DeSantis's failure.
Maybe in 28 he'll shake his wife's hand again.
Maybe.
But here's the thing, and this is where I'm glad there's not going to be another RNC debate, because I didn't pay attention to any of the other ones, as I don't think the majority of Americans did. This has been Trump's party. The Red Hats have already decided this, and what we saw coming out of DeSantis and Haley and who are the rest of the clown car? The rest of them, basically eating each other without going after Trump, without acknowledging the fact that they're the kids' table. I'm glad to see it's gone. I'm glad to see it's over. Now Haley has said she won't participate because Trump's not going to be there. And I said from the beginning he would be stupid to go and debate any one of them, because they're not anywhere near the same league. He could only lose. And I remember people saying, no, he's going to debate. He's never going to debate. I don't even think he'll debate Biden if they try and set up. I think he'll find a way to weasel out of that.
I think he will too. And we saw it, whenever he did it last time, and I mean, who knows if he was licking doorknobs to be able to get out of a debate, but ultimately squirreled his way away from the town hall piece of it. But I think nobody really watches the debates unless they're hardcore into this thing. What people end up watching are the clips from the debates after the fact. So it's just like, this is such a waste of time. Yeah. And CNN keeps holding these stupid town halls, and it's just like, stop with the town halls. Oh. And it's mostly Ron DeSantis, and it's just like, stop with the Ron DeSantis and the town halls. Like,
and stop with the trying to make Trump, he's done something different. He's not doing anything different. He's the same horrible guy he was for 4 years while he was in the White House. He's the same horrible guy he was for 2 years running for office in 2016, for running for re-election. There's nothing new here. And every time I watch CNN, it's like, they acknowledge the 91 indictments and all that stuff, but he did something different. He was nice. He called Ron DeSantis by his name. That's a high bar.
Name. Not Meatball Ron, which is what he was calling him for a really long time. Or Sanctimonious, Ron DeSanctimonious. Meatball Ron DeSanctimonious. Just run them all together.
I was waiting for Van Jones to run out there going, now he's presidential.
Right. Oh, no, this is the moment where he became president.
Maybe we could... We can run him through the courtroom as Trump's having his meltdown, which I'm sure you saw yesterday. That Trump doing his little thing, the judge threatening to throw him out of the courtroom. That was fun. I mean, he comes fresh off of winning Iowa, and then right into the courtroom where you got the judge, kind of throwing him in his place.
Yeah. So this whole week has been just a complete cluster for Trump in that E. Jean Carroll trial, and it's not even really a trial so much as it's a damages trial, right? This is not about guilt or innocence. This is about a jury deciding how much money he has to give E. Jean Carroll. So over and over, the judge keeps explaining that to Trump's lawyers and to Trump. But what he keeps doing is he's pretending to whisper to his lawyer, and then he's just speaking really loudly so that the jury can hear him. And it's so intentional to try and circumvent the rules of the court that the judge just keeps over and over again saying, you have to stop doing this. And finally lost it before their lunch break on Wednesday when he was just like, dude, I will throw you out of your courtroom. And Trump throws his arms up in the air and he says, well, yeah, like he's totally into it. And he goes, I know you're into it. I know that's what you want.
See, I would go the other way. That's why we've got duct tape.
Right. Well, I think too, this is a perfect opportunity for him to be like, I'm holding you in contempt of court. You're going into the clink. And until you come out and publicly apologize before the cameras to the court and to the jury, you get to sit there and think about what you've done.
Yeah, you're going to the corner. But right? No, look, I think this whole thing is staged. Again, everything Trump does, I think, is for the cameras. It's for ratings. I believe everything he does is to get attention, and is planned out. This, I don't think anything he does is just based off of whim at this point. So all of this shenanigans, the lawyer doing all the nonsense, look, these lawyers, they know better. So I don't think they walk into a courtroom to try and antagonize a judge. They know better. So in my view, they're doing it on purpose for one reason or another. One, to try and play to the jurors and make him look somewhat like the victim in all of this. Two, maybe some kind of appellate thing down the road. I don't know, but there's got to be something here where you're going, yeah, this is all about the bread and circus. This is all about the dog and pony show.
I definitely think that's true for Trump. I don't know that that's necessarily the case for Alina Habba, because she has no experience as a trial lawyer. And Joe Tacopina was the one who was presiding over this case. So she's just sort of coming into this incredibly green, and it's very clear that she doesn't know court procedure. Just basic things like you stand up when you're speaking to the judge, right? Like that was one of the first things the guy was like, okay, well, let's talk about the rules of this court. You stand up when you speak to me.
This is where I'm talking about. Everyone knows when you address the judge, you stand up. I saw that on court TV. I've watched that. Every time you see it, you watch it on Law and Order. You know that. Nobody who went through law school doesn't know that. So for me, that's something that they've decided that they're going to try and get this guy who you know is a stickler. You've even said the guy's a stickler. So every little thing that you can do, every little thing that you can needle him with, every little pet peeve you can trip over is something to influence his decision, to make him mad, to go, see, look, he was just mad at us because, whatever. Or do you think I'm just giving Trump too much credit, falling into the CNN trap of giving him too much credit for being too smart?
Well, I do think that Trump is absolutely that way. I don't know that Habba necessarily is. I think she's putting on a show for him in terms of the things that she's saying and the way that she's treating E. Jean Carroll whenever she did the cross-examination. But these little things, I think it just humiliates her. These are not things where, I don't know how you get up in front of a crowd of people and being like, the judge got mad at us because we wouldn't stand up to address him. That's not a good campaign slogan, right? Like, I don't know why anybody would care. And I think, I do think that he's intentionally trying to antagonize the judge. My favorite point, though, where I don't think it was intentional, was when they were trying to pick the jury. The judge asked the crowd of potential jurors, how many of you believe that the 2020 election was fake? And from the audience, Trump raised his That was like, oh, honey. Bless your heart. Bless your little heart.
You're not on the jury.
It's just those little moments that you're just like, wow, that happened.
And
because
there's a chance that guy's going to be president.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, I mean, obviously he's been throwing a fit about the fact that, oh, he loves his mother-in-law so much that he's mad he can't be at the trial during the funeral or something like that. And the thing is this whole trial unfolded over a course of several weeks last year, and he didn't go to a single one of them. And on Truth Social, he blamed it on Joe Tacopina, his old lawyer, and said, well, they told me it would be beneath me if I went to it. And it's like, so really, you're basically controlled by your lawyers? Since when has that ever happened?
So when does this wrap up? When are we done with this clown show? Because look, yeah, I'm sure that the next one is coming very soon. And as I've been seeing on social media, there are a bunch of people saying that, he's already committed. He's already defamed E. Jean Carroll again. So, she evidently there's the potential of bringing another one of these. This could just be a perpetual motion kind of thing going on and on and on, couldn't it?
It could. And E. Jean Carroll's lawyer has basically said if he decides that he's going to do this, cruelty will make him less wealthy, is the way she put it. And I thought that was a great way of saying it. But I think there's no court on Friday for this court because he wasn't in court on Thursday. I think they're going to try and wrap things up on Monday. He may speak, he may not, nobody really knows. It could be this thing where he comes in and pretends like he's going to, and then all of a sudden at the last minute he's like, no, I won't do it, to try and be dramatic.
Yeah. As my grandfather always said, you have the right to remain silent. You should probably use it.
Indeed.
You should probably use that one. Just throwing that out there. So have you been following some of the comments that the lawyers are making, that this is having a toll on him? That, it seems like they're trying to lower the bar a little bit for, his getting out and campaigning, maybe even for some health issues. Are you getting a sense of that bar lowering like I am?
It's interesting because I don't know if that is intentional or if it's just sort of happened because people have seen him. He's showing up to these court trials, and of course he's got his orange makeup on, but the lighting is really terrible and he just looks so bad.
He does look bad.
Like his skin just looks really pasty, and it's always been very porous, like large pores. But he just looks really, really terrible. And these moments where he's, raising his hand like he's a juror, right? Like there are these very strange things that he does or things that he says where, they talk about Joe Biden maybe not being with it. And you're like, have you seen this guy?
Yeah. Did you see some of the speeches out of Iowa?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was bonkers. That was, and I mean, I think we're used to him rambling, right? And I think one of the major reasons that he's spending more time in court rather than, on the stump and in these rallies is because he is able to sort of get all of this free media attention and get his people all riled up and angry about it without actually putting forth any effort or attention or having to address a huge crowd of people.
And he looks like the victim. At the end of the day,
Yes.
I think he's betting the farm on if he can look like the victim in all of this, if he can look like the one that's being persecuted, if he can be the martyr, he'll do well. But I got to tell you, when he was telling people in Iowa, if you're sick, just go vote. And if you die, then at least you voted first.
It's like, dude, you realize that you have a whole general election you got to get there too, right? But I think the thing is too, people really, especially Democrats, really harp on the polling numbers for Biden, and people are clutching at their pearls and fainting on couches and all of the above, worried about how things are going. And I think the major difference here is that you haven't had Trump on the stump the way that he normally is. And the second he starts talking more and more and more, and people start paying more attention, I think the more you'll see his numbers dwindle, because people are going to be like, what is wrong with him?
From
right?
your lips.
It's going to be, and it has become very obvious that he is way worse than he was when he left office. He is older and slower and, not as quick and certainly not as interesting.
Much angrier.
Yes.
Retribution, yes. Revenge. That's what's on the top of the mind. And that's all he's got to run on. There's no policy. There's no, hey, how we're going to move the country forward. It's all about him and all about him getting his pound of flesh. But we'll see how this plays out. But Sarah, as always, great reporting. Hope folks take a look at the website, rawstory.com. Look up Sarah Burris, and you will find we'll put some stuff out so you can take a look at that. But Sarah, as always, appreciate the time. Great stuff.
Thank you so much. Have a good week.
Our good friend Sarah Burris. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So as we've been talking about this week, they're in Switzerland. They're having their little powwow in Davos. And, during this week of our global elites, the politicians, the business folks, all coming together, figuring out, hey, how are we going to solve the world's problems and have global stakeholder capitalism take hold? Hasn't worked thus far. The group Oxfam comes out with some interesting little tidbits, some interesting little factoids, 5 people having their wealth, more than, increase more than, I don't know, like the bottom, 5 billion people. I mean, it's just crazy the amount of wealth in the hands of such a few people. And now you see this report coming out saying that in the next couple of years, we're going to have the first trillionaire. And I love the story over at Rolling Stone that came out and said, you think billionaires suck? Oh, just you wait. Wait till you get the trillionaires. And seriously, this is where you go, how much is enough? And I've had this conversation, got to be, I don't know, let's say 1,000 times. And it's usually with working people who are just able to make ends meet. They're just getting by. And you go, how much is enough? How much do these ultra wealthy folks need? And I always answer it by going, more. They always want more. There's never enough. The CEO of Caterpillar was once quoted as saying, when asked that question, how much do you want? And more, the next nickel, the next quarter. These are the people who want to, squeeze the quarter till the eagle screams. And of course, more for them, less for everybody else. And what we've seen over the last several decades is a government that clearly is in the pocket of the very wealthy, through policy, through the work that they do. And, it goes back to something, my high school government teacher always said, government decides who gets what. And are we surprised that we're not getting the things that we need in the working class? Are we surprised by what's happened? And the answer clearly is no. So let me ask the simple question. Once we get the first trillionaire, will we then start coming around to the idea, as I've been saying, we've got to go back to the good socialist president Dwight David Eisenhower's tax code, where we need to start taxing these people at 92%, at over a certain point where we need a progressive tax code to where we don't have trillionaires? Maybe we do that now. Maybe we get ahead of the curve. Maybe we say, no, billionaires are bad enough. It's bad enough that we've got Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. It's bad enough. Can you imagine Can you imagine the maniac that would come out of a trillionaire? Maybe we should start doing something now. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Miss any of the show? Podcast.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.